There's always a feeling of excitement in the medical center when the cures come in. It's one of the few times we get to see people who are really from outside the barricade. We've got medics and patients coming in all the time, but the pilot and the runners who bring the cures are different. They're not tied down to the medical center or even Cadmus. And there's a chance we might see the pilot. The rumor is that he brings in some of the Cadmus cures himself. Apparently landing within the barricade is one of the only and best pilots can manage. The first ship drops down from the sky onto the street they use for the runway. The pilot brings the ships to the stop yard away from the marble steps of City Hall. I don't know how they do that. One of the other physics say, shaking his head. Neither do I say. The ships turn and come towards us. It goes in a lot slower to land, and then it hits in the air. As I watch it come in, I wonder if someday I'll have a chance to fly in one of those ships. There are so many things I look forward to after we get everyone cured. We physics open the cases of the medical storage room and scan the tubes with our mini ports. Beep, beep, beep. The rising officers from the ships bring in cases one after another. Finish scanning the tubes of the first case. As soon as I do, another appears in front of me. Thank you, I say, reaching out to take it from the officer. I look up. It's Caro, he says. Markingham, I say. It's odd using his last name. You're in the Rising. Of course, he says. Anyways, he grins at me because we both know it's a lie. There are about 1,000 things I want to ask him, but we don't have time. We've got to keep the supplies moving. Suddenly, I don't feel like the most important thing in the world anymore. I want to ask him how and where she is and if he's heard from her. It's good to see you, Kai says. You too, I tell him. And it is. Kai holds out his hand to shake mine. And we grip tightly, and I feel him press a piece of paper into my palm. It's from her. Kai says in a low voice, so the others can't hear. Before anyone can tell us to get back to work, he heads for the door. After he disappears, I glance over at the rest of the people delivering cures, find a girl with red hair watching me. You don't know me, she says. No, I agree. She tilts her head, scrutinizing me. My name is Indy, she says. She smiles, and it makes her beautiful. I smile back, and then she's gone too. I shove the paper into my pocket. Kai doesn't come back again. At least not that I see. I can't help but feel like we're playing at the tables back in the burrow, when he was throwing that game and I was the only one who knew. We've got another secret. What does it say on the paper? I wish I could read it now, but my shift isn't over. When you're working, there isn't time for anything else. Kai and I were friends almost from the beginning of his time in the burrow. At first, I was jealous of him. I dared him to steal the red tablets, and he did. After that, we respected each other. I remember another time when Kai and I were younger. We must have been 13 or so. We were both in love with Cassia. We stood talking near her house, pretending to care what the other was saying, but really waiting to see when she'd come home. At some point, we both stopped pretending. She's not coming, I say. Maybe she went to visit her grandfather, Kai says. I nod. She'll come home eventually, Kai says. So I don't know why it matters so much that she's not here now. Right then I knew we were feeling the same thing. I knew we loved Cassia. Not exactly the same way, then the same amount. And the amount was completely 100%. Society said that numbers like that don't exist, but neither Kai nor I cared. I expect that about him too, and I know always admire the way he didn't complain or get upset about anything, even though life couldn't have been easy for him in the burrow. Most people there saw him as a replacement for someone else. That's something I've always wondered about him. What really happened to Matthew Markingham? The society told us that he died, but I didn't believe it. On the night Patrick Markingham went walking up the down the streets with his sleep clothes. It was my father who went out and talked to him into going back home before anyone else called the officials. He was out of his mind, my father whispered to my mother on the front steps. After he took Patrick home, I listened through the door. He was saying things that couldn't possibly be true. What did he say? Mother asked. My father didn't speak for a while. Right when I thought he wasn't going to tell her, he said, Patrick keeps asking me, why did I do it? My mother drew her breath. I did too. They both turned around and saw me through the screen. Go back to bed, Alexander, Mother said. There's nothing to worry about. Patrick's home now. My father never told the officials what Patrick said, and the neighbors knew that Patrick wandered the streets that night because he was grieving his son's death. No need to give any of us a red tablet to explain that away. Besides, his distress reminded us all of the need to keep anomalies away from everyone else. But I remember what my father whispered to my mother later that night when they came down the hall together. I think I saw something else in Patrick's eyes besides grief, my father said. What? My mother asked. Guilt, my father said. Because it was at his workplace that everything happened. My mother asked. He shouldn't blame himself. He couldn't have known. No, my father said. It was guilt. Real intelligent guilt. They went into the other room and I couldn't hear anything more. I don't think Patrick killed his son, but something happened there that I haven't been able to puzzle out. When my shift finally ends, I head to the small courtyard. Each medical wing has one, and it's the only place where we have access to the outdoors. I'm lucky. The only other people here are men and women in deep conversation. I walk to the other side of the courtyard and give them privacy and turn my back so they can't see me open the paper. At first, all I do is stare because he is writing. It's beautiful. I wish I knew how to write. I wish she taught me. A little surge of bitterness goes through me, like someone shot it right into my veins with a syringe. But I know how to get over that feeling. I remember that it doesn't do any good. I've been bitter before about losing her, and it's never gets me anywhere. More importantly, that's not the kind of person I've spent my life trying to become. It takes me only moments to decipher the code, a basic substitution cipher, like the ones we learned when we were kids, since society tested us to see who could sort best. I wonder if anyone else figured out the message before it got to me. Did Kai read it? Alexander, Cassia wrote, I want to tell you that I'm fine, and to tell you some other things too. First of all, don't ever take one of the blue tablets. I know the Rising has taken the tablets away, but if you come across any of the blue somehow, get rid of them. They'll kill. Wait, I read that again. I can't be right, can it? The blue tablets are supposed to save us. The Rising would have told me if that weren't true. Wouldn't they? Do they know? Her next sentence tells me that they do. It seems to be common knowledge within the Rising that the blue tablets are poisonous. But I didn't want to leave it to chance that you would find out on your own. I tried to tell you on the port that, and I thought you understood. But lately I've been worried that you didn't. Society told us that the tablets would save us, but they lied. The blue tablets make you stop and go still. If someone doesn't save you, you die. I saw it happen in the canyons. She saw it happen, so she does know. There's something about the blue. She tried to tell me, and I feel sick. Why didn't the Rising let me know? The tablets could have killed her, and it wouldn't have been my fault. How could I make that kind of mistake? A couple in the courtyard are talking louder now. I turn my back to them. I keep reading, my mind racing. Her next sentence offers some relief. At least I wasn't wrong about her being in the Rising. I'm in the Rising. Tried to tell you that too. I should have written to you earlier, but you're an official. I didn't want to risk getting you in trouble. You've never seen my writing. How would you have known the message was from me, even if the archivist said it was? And then I realized a way that I could get the message to you, through Kai. He's seen my writing. He can tell you that is really from me. I know that you're in the rising. I understood that you were trying to tell me on the port. I should have realized you've always been on the first of us to do the right thing. There's something else I wanted to tell you in person that I didn't want to put down in a letter. I want to speak to you face to face. But now I feel that I should write it after all, in case it is still some time before we meet. I know you love me, I love you, and I always will, but it ends there. The water damage made the rest of the message crinkled and illegible. For a second I see red. How could I be so conveniently destroyed right at the critical spot? What was she going to say? But she said she would always love me, but part of me wishes the message ended right there, before the last word. What happened? Did the paper get ruined by accident, or could Kai have done it on purpose? Kai played fair in games. He'd better be playing fair now. I fold the paper back and put it into my pocket. In minutes that I've been reading the note, the light has gone. The sun must have dipped below the horizon beyond the wall and the barricade. The door in the courtyard opens and Lee comes out, right as the other couple goes inside. Carol, she says, I was hoping I'd find you. Is something wrong? I asked. I haven't seen Lee in several days, since she was part of the Rising from the beginning. Since she wasn't part of the Rising from the beginning, she's not working as a physic, but instead as a general medical assistant assigned to whatever team and shift needs her most. No, she says, I'm fine. It's good to work with the patients. And you? I'm fine too, I tell her. Lee looks at me and I see the same question in her eyes that I know was in mine when I had decided whether to vouch for her or not. She wondered if she could trust me, and if she really knows me. I wanted, she said finally, to ask you about the red mark that the patients have on their backs. What is that? It's a small infection of the nerves, I say. It happens along the dermis of the back and neck when the virus is activated. I pause. But she's part of the Rising now, so I can tell her everything. The Rising told some of us to look for it because it was a sure sign of the plague. And it all happens to people who have actually become ill. Right, I say. The dead form of the virus they use in the immunization doesn't lead to significant symptoms at all. But when a person is infected with the live plague virus, it involves the nerves resulting in a small red mark. Have you seen anything unusual? She asked. Any variations of the basic virus? She tries to figure out the plague on her own, and not talking with the Rising says for granted, which should make me uneasy about having to vouch for her, but it doesn't. Not really, I say. Now and then we do have people who come in before they're completely still. I have one who was talking to me while I was giving him the cure. What did he say? Lee asked. He wanted me to promise that he'd be all right. And I say, so I did. She nodded, and it strikes me how exhausted she looks. Do you have a rest shift now? I ask her. Not for a few hours, she says. It doesn't matter much anyways. I haven't slept well since he left. I can't dream. In some way, it's hardest part of having him gone. I understand. Because if you can't dream, you can't pretend that he's still here, I say. That's what I do when I dream. I'm back in the burrow with Cassia. No, Lee says I can't. She looks at me and I hear what she doesn't say. Her match is gone. Nothing is the same. Then she leans a little closer to me. To my surprise, she puts her hands on my face. Very briefly, for the first time someone has done since Cassia. And I have to resist leaning into Lee's touch. Your eyes are blue, she says, and she pulls her hands back. So are his. Her voice is lonely and full of longing for him.